The Roaring Twenties was a time of economic growth and prosperity, as well as a time of social change. Prohibition, flappers, the Harlem Renaissance, organized crime, and women's suffrage are some of the events that would take place during this time. The 1920s would be the time of business-friendly, laissez-faire presidents. Warren Harding was one of these. He was elected after Woodrow Wilson, and he would campaign on the slogan of a return to normalcy, where he promised that if elected, he would bring the country back to normal after World War I. Harding would actually die in office, but later it would come to light that several scandals took place while Harding was in office. One of these, called the Teapot Dome scandal, caused public disappointment with the scandals that were taking place at the highest levels of government. The 18th Amendment was passed, which led to the prohibition of alcohol. However, it seemed that this amendment was destined to fail as it was almost impossible to enforce, and even those in high government positions drank and possessed alcohol. Prohibition led to a rise in organized crime, and a notorious crime boss from Chicago named Al Capone helped distribute and profit off of the selling of illegal alcohol. The 18th Amendment was passed with the backing of women voters, who now had the right to vote because of the passage of the 19th Amendment. Because of the power of women voters and the organization of the temperance movement, women showed that they could be a powerful influence politically. The 1920s were also the time of Henry Ford and the automobile. Henry Ford, with the use of the assembly line, was able to mass produce automobiles very quickly and cheaply. 5 of 6 Americans would own an automobile in the 1920s. Americans could now buy products they couldn't immediately afford. By using installment plans, buyers could place a little money down for something and then continue to pay for it over the weeks or months. Americans were now becoming in debt. Females, called flappers, would cut their hair short, bobbed, wear short dresses, smoke in public, and had a disdain for Puritanism and repression. This was the new young female of the 1920s. During what was known as the Great Migration, blacks began to escape from the South, where they were mistreated and lynched, and head to an industrialized North looking for jobs and a better way of life. It was also during this time that many blacks came to Harlem in New York, and it would lead to what was known as the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance was a black intellectual movement that celebrated art, literature, and jazz. Jazz was a distinct music style all its own that began in nightclubs and brothels. Puritans disliked it because of where it started, but it would eventually spread to the white population as well. Americans in the 1920s were well aware of the communist revolution in Russia and were fearful that communists from Russia and other areas of Europe were infiltrating the United States. This fear of communism in the United States was known as the Red Scare. As a result, nativists, those who dislike immigrants and want a ethnically homogeneous society, attempted to keep immigrants out of the United States. Regardless of nativist attempts, immigrants have made the culture of the United States more diverse and interesting. For instance, someone would be hard-pressed to name a food that is distinctly American, when many of the foods Americans regularly enjoy come from other countries.